Hi, I'm here with DMTV Milkshake. I'm Lauren Rottet. I'm an architect, but I consider myself a designer first because I love to conceive, design, and then make really anything that I think might add a little bit of visual interest to the world. I'm one of the founding principals of Rottet Studio, and we do predominantly interior architecture, but we also do exteriors for buildings and houses, and we do branding. We do landscape design, a little bit of it, ideation. We also do art consultation and a lot of product design. We're very well known for high-rise residential, such as the Central Park Tower in New York, and also for hotels like the Surrey in New York or the Conrad in Washington, D.C. that we did with Herzog de Meuron. But we also do all of Viking's ocean and river ships, and we do restaurants and bars and so on. Fortunately, our clients take us really all around the world, so we get to understand an international perspective on design. One of the things that has me highly occupied these days and very focused is our product design, because we're launching a new line for Rottet Collection in May in New York at ICFF. And so the team of people who've been with me for many years, amazing designers, and I through the years design products. Sometimes it's just because we want to see something out there that isn't, and sometimes we can't find something and we need it, so we design it. So this year we're focusing on product that can be used both indoor and outdoor. So come check it out. So with all of that said, and as a background for me so that you know where I'm coming from, let's get to the questions, okay? So, what materials inspire you these days now? Well, you know, glass has actually always inspired me. My work is very influenced by the light and space designers and architects, well, actually artists, and in particular the ones who work in glass, like Larry Bell. It's amazing how one sheet of glass with a reflectivity on it and the day of light and the movement can create such kinetic energy within a space. Right now I'm looking at color integral glass, and the colors in particular, a dark smoky gray, a beautiful amber, a navy blue, and that funny green color from the 1940s that had a little bit of gray mixed in it, that sort of deep green with gray, whatever color you call that. I guess I should say that I'm fascinated or inspired by wood these days because it's very on trend, and certainly we use wood in all of our projects that we do, but really I'm very focused on three materials: the glass, and using it with stone, and not just slab stone, but chunks of stone, big blocks of stone, and thinking about what the stone is indigenous to where you live. In Texas, it's the limestone. In Vermont, it's the white marble. You know, in Asia, it's other beautiful materials and so on and so forth. So how you make products out of stone, and then the glass, and then marry them with warm metals. I'm very into the warm metals these days. They say every 20 years it shifts back between silver and gold. Well, I think we're in a gold period, but I never leave my silver and stainless period either. So just thinking about it, what I'm really most inspired by and what I'm kind of working with most is glass, metals, and stone, block stone. So let's see what question 2 is here. Let's see, I have it. Okay, so question 2. So is there, it's both sided. Okay, here we go. Is there one architect in history that inspires you? Well, I wouldn't say that there's just one. It's actually many. And it's not just the architects, it's really the buildings, because some of these historic architects, of course, you've never met, but you've seen the product of their work. So as a kid, I went in and out of those beautiful lobbies of Rockefeller Center and the Chrysler Building and others. And I'm still influenced by the Chrysler Building because as I'm in my New York apartment looking out the window, I look at the top of the Chrysler Building, and I think that might have been William Ward Allen, and I scarcely think of him, but he must have influenced me clearly. I'm highly influenced by very minimal architecture and modernism, and then also actually ornate but very sophisticated work from the 1920s and 30s Deco period. So Jacques Ruhlmann and Pierre Chareau, and Ruhlmann with his beautiful furniture definitely has had an influence on me, and the sense of proportion. I think no one did proportions as well as Ruhlmann. The beautiful verticality of it just makes everything feel elegant. And then Pierre Chareau's beautiful use of really industrial materials in an elegant way. It sounds a little cliche to say that Mies van der Rohe has influenced me because he's influenced so many, but I did grow up in Houston, and he did 2 additions to the Museum of Fine Arts that I frequented from time I was a child. One in, I believe, the late 50s, and then one in the 60s, or was conceived in the 60s and added later. And the juxtaposition of those two very modernist minimal buildings onto the classical Beaux-Arts original building is just stunning. And to this day, those spaces inspire me inside or outside. There's also current architects who inspire me, Shiguru Ban, Herzog de Meuron, and others like that. Okay, let's see, question 3 here. Just got a light on it, so. Okay, it says, you have designed some of the most exquisite addresses in the world. What is it like working in these spaces? And is the pressure on? Does the pressure go up as the budget goes up? Interesting question. The stress is always on. So actually there is a bit of pressure on these mega projects like Central Park Tower, 200 East 83rd, or the one we're just starting in San Francisco with Norman Foster, because one, the obligation to, they've hired you, the developers and owners have hired you, and they're entrusting you with this very, very important project to them. But two, the stress points on because you almost, in a sense, have to compete with these amazing architects that are on the building, and not really compete because you want your work to go with theirs. But I mean, you need to be at their level. You need to bring your work to their level so that expectations about the inside are never let down. That when someone sees a beautiful building from the outside, then they come into it, they're even more excited about it. So I think that's where some of the pressure does come. But I think of all of my projects equally in the sense that I like to think of them like I've been hired as a film set designer. So whether my film is staged in the most exquisite pied-à-terre in all of Paris, or whether my film is staged in a beautiful little cottage on a remote island, it's my job to do the exquisite pied-à-terre or to do the warm, wonderful little cottage. So whether the budget is low or whether the budget is high, I see my job as equally as important. So it's not the stress level through the budget, it's just the stress level for meeting the obligations of really not letting anyone down on those projects. So let's see, one more question. I think is all we have time for. What is the favorite feature in your home? Well, you can't see much of my home, but I'm in my 1920s Southern Colonial home in Houston, which is what they did a lot of in the 20s in Houston. So I wouldn't say that Southern Colonial features are my favorite. So here, it's all of the little pieces of art that I've collected over time and the objects. I think there's some ostrich eggs behind me. There's a maquette for a Claes Oldenburg sculpture of the mouse ears, which I quite love, that sits behind me. So I would say in this home, my favorite features are the collections, or the vignettes, basically, that I've put against the house. It's been a beautiful backdrop for art. And then you might be able to see it out my window, but the very, very long pool that I put in the backyard, extremely minimalist, and it goes quite well with the Southern Colonial architecture and all the greenery and trees. And I have to say, it's not in my house because we don't want ivy growing in the house, but tons of beautiful green ivy, clearly one of my favorite features in the South. Now, if we were in the George Nelson built house, designed house in Montauk, I would point out many features, because his brilliance of doing a home that's actually literally all hexagons, and the moments that occur with these hexagons, it's just absolutely a beautiful environment to live in. So thank you for being with me today, and I've enjoyed answering these questions, and I hope you got to know a little bit about how I think and what inspires me.